The security footage showed everything. Maya's silhouette against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Zayan's penthouse. Her dress pooled on the marble floor at 2:47 a.m. But our story begins 6 months earlier, in the pulsing heart of Manhattan, where dreams and deception dance together under neon lights. The rooftop bar overlooked the city like a glittering battlefield. 30 floors above the chaos of Broadway, Amir adjusted his borrowed tie for the third time, feeling like an imposter among the designer suits and champagne flutes. His company had sent him to this networking event, essential for career growth, they'd said, but he knew he was just window dressing. The diverse face they wheeled out for important clients. That's when he saw her. Maya stood silhouetted against the city skyline, her phone capturing the perfect golden hour shot. Even from across the crowd, her presence commanded attention, not just because of her obvious beauty, but because of the way she moved with calculated confidence, like someone who understood the rules of this concrete jungle. "You know her?" asked Jake, Amir's colleague, following his gaze. "Maya Chen, big influencer, works in marketing for Zenith Corp. Way out of your league, man." But Amir was already walking toward her, drawn by something he couldn't name. Maybe it was the brief moment when she lowered her phone and he caught a glimpse of exhaustion in her eyes. Or maybe it was the way she stood slightly apart from the crowd, as lonely as he felt. "Mind if I steal your view?" he said, approaching the railing beside her. She turned, surprised by his directness. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones, intelligent dark eyes, lips that curved into an amused smile. "It's a free country, though nothing's really free in this city, is it? Especially not the view," he agreed, gesturing at the sprawling lights below. "I'm Amir." Maya. She studied him with the same intensity she'd focused on her phone screen moments before. "You're not from here, Detroit, you." "Shanghai originally. Though I've been reinventing myself so long, I sometimes forget." There was something vulnerable in that admission, quickly covered by her practiced smile. "What brings you to the vulture's nest?" They talked for an hour, the party buzzing around them unnoticed. She told him about her work in digital marketing, how she'd built her personal brand from nothing, how the city both energized and drained her. He shared his own struggles, the pressure to prove himself, the late nights chasing impossible deadlines, the weight of family expectations back home. When she laughed at his stories, it wasn't the polite Twitter he'd heard from other women at these events. It was genuine, surprising, musical. When he made her laugh harder, she touched his arm unconsciously, and he felt something electric pass between them. "I should go," she said finally, checking her phone. "Early morning tomorrow." Of course, he tried to hide his disappointment. "Maybe I'll see you round." She paused, seemed to debate something internally, then pulled out her phone. "What's your number?" As they exchanged contacts, their fingers brushed. Such a small moment, but Amir felt it in his chest like a struck chord. In a city of 8 million people, somehow they'd found each other in this crowd of strangers. "Text me," she said, already stepping away. "I'll show you the city sometime, the real city, not just the tourist traps." He watched her disappear into the elevator, her silhouette growing smaller until the doors closed. The party continued around him, but Amir barely noticed. He was already planning what he'd text her, already imagining where she might take him, already falling for someone he'd known for an hour. His phone buzzed. "Thanks for the conversation. It's been a while since I talked to someone who actually listened." I'm standing there on that rooftop, with the city spread beneath him like a promise. Amir couldn't have imagined that in 6 months, that same city would witness their destruction. Maya's apartment in Soho was everything Amir had dreamed of: exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view that cost more per month than his entire salary. But it wasn't the space that captivated him. It was watching Maya move through it, completely in her element yet somehow fragile, like she was performing even in her own home. "Coffee or wine?" she asked, though it was barely noon on a Saturday. "Coffee. I want to be awake for whatever you have planned." She laughed, that same genuine sound from the rooftop party. 3 weeks ago, they'd been texting constantly since then, long conversations that stretched past midnight, sharing everything from childhood fears to career ambitions. But this was their first real date. and Amir felt the weight of possibility. "So," she said, handing him a perfect cappuccino, "ready for your real New York education?" The next 6 hours blurred together like a montage from a romantic movie. She took him to hidden speakeasies in Chinatown, street food vendors in Queens that served better than any Michelin-starred restaurant, bookshops in Brooklyn where poets still gathered on Sunday nights. With Maya as his guide, the city transformed from an intimidating maze into a playground of possibilities. "How do you know all this?" he asked as they sat in a tiny jazz club in Harlem, listening to music that seemed to flow directly into their veins. "When you're reinventing yourself, you learn to explore every corner," she said, her voice barely audible over the saxophone. "I spent my first year here completely alone, just walking. I must have covered every street in Manhattan twice. And now," she looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, "now I'm showing someone else." That night, they ended up back at her apartment, talking until sunrise painted the sky pink outside her windows. They didn't sleep together, not yet, but they shared something deeper, stories about family disappointment, about the crushing weight of expectations, about the loneliness of ambition. "Sometimes I feel like I'm performing my own life," Maya confessed as dawn broke over the city. "Like the real me is buried under all these carefully curated posts and professional achievements." "I know exactly what you mean," Amir said. "Back home, I was just Amir. Here, I'm diverse hire Amir or ambitious Amir or whatever version people need me to be. What if we could just be ourselves with each other?" It was a dangerous question in a city built on facades. But looking at her face in the morning light, makeup smudged, guard completely down, Amir knew his answer. Within 2 months, they were inseparable. Amir kept his cramped studio in Queens for appearances, but most nights found him at Maya's place. They cooked dinner together, shared Netflix passwords, and fell asleep to the sound of sirens and city life 30 floors below. Maya showed him the yoga classes, where Manhattan's elite pretended to find inner peace, while Amir introduced her to the pickup basketball games in Riverside Park where real New Yorkers settled their differences. She taught him how to network without selling his soul, and he showed her how to find quiet moments in the city's chaos. Their Instagram posts from this period told the story of a perfect couple, conquering the city together, romantic dinners, weekend getaways to the Hamptons, professional victories celebrated with champagne. But the reality was even better. They balanced each other, his groundedness tempering her anxiety, her sophistication elevating his rough edges. "We're good together," Maya said one evening as they watched the sunset. "From her fire escape, we're everything," Amir replied, and meant it. But success in New York is like standing on sand, solid until it shifts. Amir's promotion to senior consultant came with longer hours and higher stakes. Maya's follower count crossed 100K, bringing collaboration offers that demanded more of her time and attention. Slowly, imperceptibly, their golden bubble began to crack. The first real fight happened on a Tuesday night in October. Amir came home at midnight to find Maya editing photos from an event he'd missed, her laptop screen casting blue light across her tired face. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing her neck. "Fine," she said, not looking up. "Same as always, Maya, it's fine." "Amir, really, I'm used to doing things alone." The words stung more than she'd intended, and his response came out sharper than he'd meant. "I'm working for us, for our future. Our future or your future." It was their first real crack, hairline thin but visible. Neither of them recognized it as the beginning of the end. The email arrived on a Thursday morning while Maya was reviewing analytics for her latest campaign. Subject line: Collaboration Opportunity, Z. Investment Group. She almost deleted it automatically. Her inbox was flooded with partnership requests, but something about the sender's name made her pause. Zayan Malik. She'd heard whispers about him in marketing circles, the golden boy of venture capital, 32 years old with a portfolio worth more than some small country's GDP. Rumored to be brilliant, ruthless, and devastatingly charismatic. "I've been following your work," the message read. "Your authentic approach to lifestyle marketing is exactly what my portfolio companies need. Would you be interested in discussing an exclusive consulting arrangement? I believe we could create something revolutionary together." Maya stared at the screen. This wasn't some random brand wanting her to promote protein powder or skincare. This was the kind of opportunity that could change everything. The jump from influencer to industry power player she'd been dreaming about since arriving in New York. She didn't tell Amir about the email. Their relationship had been strained for weeks. He was pulling 14-hour days trying to land the Morrison account, while she felt increasingly invisible. In their own apartment, when they did see each other, they were both too exhausted for real conversation, reduced to comparing schedules and splitting takeout costs. The meeting with Zayan took place in his penthouse office on the 52nd floor of a glass tower in Midtown. Maya had dressed carefully, professional but approachable, successful but not threatening. She thought she was prepared for anything. She wasn't prepared for Zayan himself. He was everything the rumors suggested and more. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. But it was his attention that caught her off guard. When he looked at her, she felt like the only person in the room, in the building, in the entire city. "Maya Chen," he said, standing to greet her, "your reputation precedes you. All good things. I hope, exceptional things." His smile was perfectly calibrated, warm enough to disarm, sharp enough to intrigue. "Please, sit. Can I offer you something? Coffee, water, champagne?" "I was just celebrating the acquisition of a small tech company in Prague." The office was a monument to success. Original Pollock paintings, furniture that cost more than most people's cars, a view that stretched from Central Park to the Hudson River. Maya tried not to gawk, but she couldn't help comparing it to Amir's borrowed tie and cramped cubicle. "So," Zayan said, settling into the chair across from her, "tell me about your vision for the next hour." He drew her out with surgical precision. He asked about her goals, her frustrations with traditional marketing, her thoughts on authentic brand building. More importantly, he listened, not just to her words, but to the ambition underneath them. "You're wasted on individual campaigns," he said finally. "You should be setting industry standards, not following them." That's exactly what I want," Maya admitted. "But the leap from where I am to where you're describing feels impossible." "Nothing's impossible with the right partnership." He leaned forward slightly, and she caught a hint of expensive cologne. "I'm proposing something unprecedented, full creative control over marketing strategy for 12 of my portfolio companies, plus equity stakes in the ones you help scale. We're talking about building an empire, Maya. Your empire." The numbers he outlined made her head spin. In 2 years, she could go from struggling to pay her Soho rent to owning property in 3 countries. She could stop worrying about algorithm changes and brand partnerships and focus on the big picture strategy she'd always dreamed about. "There's just one thing," Zayan added, almost casually. "This kind of partnership requires absolute trust. I need to know that my collaborators are completely committed, no divided loyalties." Something in his tone made her cautious. "What do you mean?" "I mean that success at this level demands sacrifice, personal relationships, social obligations, anything that might compromise your focus." His eyes held hers steadily. "I'm not saying you can't have a personal life. I'm saying that if you want to run with wolves, you can't be tied to sheep." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "My personal life doesn't affect my professional judgment." "I'm sure it doesn't," he said smoothly. "I'm simply suggesting that as you evolve professionally, you may find that your personal needs evolve as well." The meeting ended with promises to think it over, but Maya's decision was already made. This was the break she'd been waiting for, the opportunity to become the person she'd always known she could be. Walking through the lobby of Zayan's building, past the marble and gold fixtures, Maya felt intoxicated by possibility. For a moment, she let herself imagine what her life could look like. Boardroom presentations, international travel, recognition as a visionary rather than just an influencer. Her phone buzzed with a text from Amir, "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up, love you." Standing there in the shadow of success, reading those tired words, Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Love wasn't enough anymore. Love didn't pay for dreams. That night, she accepted Zayan's offer. She still didn't tell Amir. By December, Maya was living 2 lives, and the strain was showing in the dark circles under her eyes. that even professional-grade concealer couldn't hide. Her days were consumed by strategy sessions with Zayan's team, late-night calls with portfolio companies, and increasingly sophisticated campaigns that had her name attached to seven-figure deals. Amir noticed the changes but misread them completely. Maya's distraction, her expensive new clothes, her sudden unavailability. He interpreted it all as success finally finding her. He was proud, even as he felt the growing distance between them. "You're becoming everything you wanted to be," he told her one rare evening when they were both home at the same time. "Yeah," Maya replied, not looking up from her laptop. "I guess I am." What he couldn't see were the private dinners with Zayan, ostensibly to discuss strategy, but lasting until midnight with conversations that had nothing to do with business. Zayan was unlike anyone she'd ever met, not just wealthy, but intellectually sharp in a way that made her feel challenged and seen simultaneously. "You're transforming before my eyes," he told her during one of these dinners at an exclusive restaurant 40 floors above Times Square. "It's remarkable to watch someone fully realize their potential. Sometimes I don't recognize myself." Maya admitted. The wine, a bottle that cost more than she used to make in a month, had loosened her tongue. "That's called growth," Zayan said. "Though I suspect the people in your old life might not understand. The new you," he was right, and they both knew it. Amir's world of pickup basketball games and dive bars felt increasingly foreign to Maya. When he talked about his work problems, she found herself impatient with what seemed like small-scale thinking. When she tried to share her victories, she could see him struggling to relate to the scope of what she was building. The breaking point came on a snowy Thursday night in January. Amir had finally closed the Morrison account, the biggest win of his career, and wanted to celebrate. Maya had promised to keep the evening free, but a crisis with a tech startup in Seattle demanded her attention. "It's just one night," Amir said, standing in their bedroom doorway watching her pack her laptop. "Can't it wait until morning? This company is hemorrhaging users by the hour," Maya explained, not stopping her preparations. "Every minute we delay costs thousands in valuation, and my celebration costs what, exactly?" The hurt in his voice made her pause. "Amir, you know I'm proud of you, do I? Because honestly, Maya, I'm not sure you even see me anymore." She looked at him then, really looked. He was still handsome, still the man who'd made her laugh on that rooftop 11 months ago, but standing there in his off-the-rack suit, surrounded by the apartment she was now paying for entirely, he seemed suddenly small, not lesser. "Exactly, but limited. I see you," she said quietly. "I just see me more clearly now." The words hung between them like a blade. Amir's face went through several emotions before settling on something that looked like resignation. "Right," he said. "I'll celebrate alone then." Maya left for her emergency meeting, and neither of them said goodbye. She spent that night in Zayan's office, working until 3 a.m. to salvage the Seattle startup's user engagement. When they finally solved the crisis, Zayan broke out a bottle of champagne that had been aging since before Maya was born. "To partnerships that matter," he toasted. They were standing close together, the city lights creating a halo round his silhouette. Maya felt the same electricity she'd experienced with Amir on the rooftop, but amplified, intoxicating. "Maya," Zayan said, his voice lower now, more intimate. "You must know how I feel about you. Zayan, you're extraordinary, not just talented, but exceptional in a way this city rarely produces." His hand touched her face gently. "You could have everything. We could build something together that would make both our names legendary." In that moment, surrounded by luxury and success, dizzy from champagne and victory, Maya felt the last of her resistance crumble. This was what she deserved, what she'd been working toward her entire life. Amir represented her past, her limitations, her smaller self. Zayan represented her future. When he kissed her, she kissed him back. The next morning, Maya woke up in Zayan's bed, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that faced east toward the rising sun. For a moment, she felt only satisfaction. She'd crossed a line she could never uncross. And instead of regret, she felt liberated. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Amir. The security footage was almost artistic in its cruelty, black and white, perfectly angled to capture everything while revealing nothing of the emotions involved. Amir watched it 3 times before his hands stopped shaking enough to save the file to his laptop. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's first night with Zayan. 3 weeks of elaborate lies, manufactured excuses, and increasingly obvious signals that she was building a life that didn't include him. Amir had tried to convince himself that his suspicions were just insecurity, just the paranoia of a small-town boy in a big city. The footage proved otherwise. He'd hired the private investigator almost as a formality, expecting to be proven wrong. Instead, Marcus had delivered a comprehensive dossier that read like a masterclass in deception: restaurant, receipts, hotel records, and finally, the security camera access that Marcus's connections had provided. "I'm sorry, man," Marcus had said, sliding the envelope across the table at a diner in Queens. "But you said you needed to know for sure." Now Amir sat in his neglected studio apartment, surrounded by the remnants of his old life, staring at evidence of Maya's betrayal. But alongside the pain, he felt something unexpected: clarity. He opened his laptop and began to work. Amir had always been good with details. It's what made him valuable as a consultant. While Maya had been building her empire, he'd been paying attention to the foundation it was built on. Late nights when she thought he was sleeping, he'd listened to her phone calls, business dinners where he'd felt invisible. He'd observed the dynamics between Maya and Zayan's associates. Most importantly, he'd noticed things that didn't add up. The next morning, Amir called the SEC tip line. "I have information about potential securities fraud involving Z. Investment Group," he said. "Specifically, I believe they've been manipulating valuations through artificial engagement campaigns." It wasn't personal revenge, or at least, he told himself it wasn't. The evidence was real. Zayan had been using Maya's marketing expertise to inflate social media metrics for companies before selling them at grossly inflated valuations. The sophisticated campaigns Maya was so proud of were essentially elaborate pump-and-dump schemes. Amir had documentation, bank records that showed payments flowing through shell companies, email chains discussing engagement optimization that was actually bot manipulation. Most damning of all, he had recordings of Zayan's phone calls that Maya had unknowingly captured during their work sessions. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. By Thursday, federal agents were seizing computers from Z investment offices. By Friday, Zayan's assets were frozen pending criminal charges. Maya called Amir that afternoon, her voice hollow with shock. "Did you know," she asked without preamble, "about the fraud? I suspected. Why didn't you warn me?" Amir closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have chosen to believe him?" Her silence was answer. "Enough, Maya," he said gently. "I loved you. I loved the person you were before you decided that wasn't enough. What happens now? Now you figure out who you are when the cameras stop rolling." The call ended there. Amir never spoke to Maya again, though he followed her story through mutual friends and social media. The scandal destroyed her reputation along with Zayan's empire. Her consulting contracts evaporated. Her social media following plummeted, and she eventually left New York for a marketing job in Portland, a smaller pond where her tainted name might heal. Zayan received a federal conviction and 5 years in prison. His empire, built on manipulation and false promises, crumbled completely. 6 months later, Amir stood on the same rooftop where he'd met Maya, attending another networking event. The city sprawled below him, unchanged despite all the lives it had consumed and transformed. He'd been promoted twice since the scandal, apparently. Bringing down a white-collar crime ring impressed the right people. But success felt different now. He was older, more cautious about the price of ambition. He still lived alone, though not from lack of options. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. "Mind if I steal your view?" a voice said beside him. Amir turned to see a woman about his age, professionally dressed but with kind eyes that reminded him of home. "It's a free country," he replied, though he couldn't help adding, "though nothing's really free in this city." She laughed, genuine, unguarded, real. "I'm Sarah." "Amir," As they talked, watching the sunset behind the glass towers, Amir felt something familiar stir in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the possibility of hope. But this time, he kept his feet firmly planted on solid ground. What do you think? In a city where everyone wears masks and love comes with a price tag, who was the real victim in this story? Was Amir justified in his revenge, or did his actions make him just another player in the city's cruel game? And in the end, when ambition collides with authentic connection, which path leads to true fulfillment?